Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Are you okay? You had a good day?
Good. Yeah, so far very good. Yeah, my husband's just getting ready to go off to Edinburgh. We always do this annual pilgrimage to the Edinburgh Festival.
Okay. Oh,
Um, so yeah, he used to be and still does a bit of street performing.
okay.
So he's got the car all packed up with unicycles and juggling clubs and things,
Nice,
and
nice.
he's going off there, and then I'm doing an audio book, and then Wales Comic Con in Newport,
Oh, okay.
and then I'm going to join him sort
So
of mid August.
busy,
So
busy, busy,
exciting.
busy.
Yeah, whereabouts are you?
So I'm near Reading in Berkshire.
Oh yes, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a little town off Reading called Bracknell, but most people know Reading, so it's best to explain there.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Is that the Bracknell, Berkshire?
yes, yeah.
Is it Berkshire?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Berkshire.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for coming on. Thank you for speaking with me and taking your time to answer some questions. So I'd just like to ask you a few questions,
no
basically.
problem.
Um,
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
so to start off with, could you tell me a little bit more about your childhood and where you was born and what it was like growing up for you?
Yeah, I was born in southeast London in Greenwich, of Greenwich Mean Time fame,
Hmm.
and I moved across the Blackheath to the other side of Blackheath, and I lived there for all my life till I was 17, 18, and then I went up to Manchester to university. But I had a very I look back now and I think, oh my goodness, my background was so privileged. It was Blackheath is a beautiful part of London, Georgian houses and sort of lovely Blackheath itself and Greenwich Park.
Yeah.
And I had this really lovely childhood. When I was sort of like, well, until about the age of 10 or 11, I lived in a very, very quiet road,
Hmm.
and there were quite a lot of kids of my age.
Okay.
And so we all used to go out, and people had sort of little front gardens and things and drives. And we used to just go out and play the whole time together. It was a real sort of community. I was so lucky, and I'm still actually friends
Wow.
with my best friend from then.
Wow.
She lives in Edinburgh, funnily enough, so I'll be seeing her in a couple of weeks.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely. How did you get into acting? Why did you choose to go into this? Choose to go into this path?
Well, funnily enough, it was when I was growing up because I loved making up stories and dressing up. We had a fantastic dressing up chest with lots of, I guess, my mum's old clothes and maybe my sort of other relations. And children used to come round. We all used to dress up, and then
Hmm.
I used to put on plays. I mean, I don't think they were they weren't plays like you'd recognise, but they were kids' plays.
Yeah.
We'd do things like Cinderella or things like that. I've got some photos of me actually
Okay.
dressed in my mum's old skirt made of blackout material from the war,
Hmm.
um, desperately sweeping this floor, and I think it was. You can see from my face that I was so into it, really into my character, and the other kids are all just sort of messing about.
Yeah.
And then I used to play. I always had to have this particular shirt on and a hat, and I was Prince Charming on my hobby horse,
Okay.
and I'd boss the other kids around, which was funny because I was actually quite a shy child unless I was with my family or friends,
Hmm.
and I just loved doing plays, and I did them at school, and then it just went on from there, really. So it
Yeah.
wasn't really a choice. I think acting chose me in a way. I
Yeah.
think it's a bit like that when I've talked to other actors. It's not a choice. It's like a sort of, oh, this is me. This is a part of how I express myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's lovely. How did you get your role into Doctor Who? Did it involve many auditions? And what was your first day like? Was you nervous?
Well, it was an extraordinary thing. I did two auditions. That's all. I did
Hmm.
an audition with the director, um, and then I met the producer for about 10 minutes, and I read this bit of script, and I didn't even have a screen test. I mean, it was extraordinary looking back. I think he must have just had an instinct about it.
Yeah.
And then I got the part of Ace in 3 episodes in a story called Dragonfire.
Yep.
And then, but when they gave me that part, they said, keep it under wraps, but it might be that they want me to be the new Doctor Who companion.
Okay.
They were just seeing what was happening with Bonnie Langford. And she decided to leave while we were doing our first week's rehearsals, I think.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to take over the role. I mean, it was just extraordinary. Like, I mean, I'd never been in I had been in one TV studio.
Mm-hmm.
I went to watch Coronation Street being filmed when I was a student in Manchester.
Okay.
But apart from that, I'd never been in front of a camera. So my first day was like, I was in front of the camera for the very first time. And I remember I stood in front of the camera and they panned down me like this to look at my costume. And then my tights were stripy originally, and they strobed on camera, so they had to go off and find me some red tights. And my first scene was with Edward Peel, who was playing the baddie Kane, and he was brilliant because he was so sweet and nice and funny and kind.
Yeah.
And I had to look up at him like this, and he said, "Oh, just look up there." And we were in the #1 studio at TV Centre, which was the biggest studio in the UK, in Europe at the time.
Okay.
And I looked up like this, and there were screens all around the studio,
mm-hmm.
and there was my face, massive in each of these screens all around the studio. But I loved it. I absolutely loved the process of TV.
Yeah.
It was really exciting. I enjoyed it very much.
Lovely. Is there a particular story that you is like your favourite to you, like you had the most fun being involved with?
Yeah, I mean, I loved doing them all. It was brilliant being involved in all of them, and every cast were fantastic, and I was learning from people that we had in, like, Tony Selby and Sheila Hancock, Sylvia Sims, Tinsdale Landon, Simon Williams, people who I'd grown up watching on TV. Yeah. Suddenly there I was working with them. So I was picking up all their tips and help, and that was fantastic. But I think my favourite story of all, because it was the most satisfying to play as an actor, was The Curse of Fenric.
Okay.
And you had Second World War, vampires, and Viking Norse mythology. What more can you want? But I had to do everything in that. It was. I seduced a guard. I had to be really angry with the Doctor because he was manipulating Ace. So I had to be very emotional, do a lot of emotional acting as well. Some funny bits, some kind of. It was a real. Lots of stunts, which I also love doing. So yeah, I think that was my favourite of all.
Lovely. You probably get asked this quite a lot, but is there a specific favourite enemy you like going against?
Well, when I was young, I absolutely was terrified of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much the Daleks for me; it was the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because they were humanoid, and they were a bit like people, and I thought that was really, really scary. So that's who I was really scared of. And then to do a story, the 25th anniversary story with them, was fantastic, and it got me over my fear of them. And I'll tell you why. It was because the production manager, he cast them all. They needed to be 6 foot, like big guys.
Yeah.
And he had a great idea, and he went to the male model casting directory.
Okay.
So he cast all male models to play the Cybermen. I mean, apart from David Banks and Mark, who were the leader and the co-lead, but the rest of them were all. So of course, whenever they were sort of sitting around they took their helmets off, and these beautiful men were sitting around, and that got me over my fear of Cybermen quite quickly, really.
I must admit, Cybermen are probably my favourite as well.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. We all know you had an amazing on-screen relationship with the Seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. What was it like working beside him?
Oh, it was amazing. It was. I mean, we're lucky enough to still work together. So we do Big Finish audios.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
do lots of conventions together. I'm looking forward to seeing him in Wales in a couple of weeks' time.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know, we just clicked straight away, and we still do. It's just a really fantastic relationship that we have, and I think sharing something as because for him it was so exciting at that time as well, because he'd been cast as Doctor Who. He was in his 40s. It was like the role of a lifetime, and
Yeah.
so it was very special time for both of us. And now it's great to look back on it together, and but also, we know each other so well now, our families, and they've I've grown up knowing his sons right from when they were 10 and
Yeah,
12,
lovely.
I think they were at the time, to now they're grown up with, one of them's got a family of his own.
Yeah.
And my boys as well. Sylvester was always brilliant with them growing up, and now they're in their 20s. It's become a lifelong friendship.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It still continues.
Nice. You just mentioned Big Finish. How did you get involved in Big Finish? Did Nicholas Brigg come to you and?
Well, Nick wasn't really involved with Big Finish in those days.
Oh, okay.
He was more doing real-time pictures with Keith Barnfather.
Hmm.
But I mean, they were all involved in some way, all those fans.
Yeah.
So it was once the show was, we knew the show wasn't going to come back. Fans started doing their own stuff. So Bill Baggs, who did these things, BBV was his company, he was already doing sort of spin-off videos with Colin and Nicola called The Stranger,
Hmm.
which were based on Doctor Who. And he started doing audio adventures as well with, and he said, would you like to do The Professor and Ace? We said, yeah, sure. So we were going along doing this original content because it was great stuff, well written,
Yeah.
well produced.
Yeah.
That was the first audio we did with BBV, and Adventures in Space and Time they were called,
Hmm.
and that was really the precursor, I think. I think fans had been doing their own ones, their own versions for years, but this was the first time that people from the show had been involved.
Yeah.
And somebody called Mark Gatiss wrote one for me and Sylvester. I remember one of those, whoever he is. And, people, fans of the show, just wanted new content, wanted to make it.
Yeah.
And so it went on. And then Big Finish, we knew Jason Haig-Ellery and Gary Russell, and they eventually got the license from the BBC because Bill was told by the BBC, please don't do what you're doing anymore because it's very like Doctor Who and you haven't got a license. So Jason and Gary went along and said, well, can we have the license? They did Bernice. They were told no initially.
Yeah.
Then they did the Bernice Summerfield stuff.
Mhm.
And then the BBC got wind of this, heard it, thought it was great, and called them and said, would you do Doctor Who? So they said, yes, we will. And that was how Big Finish started.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it. And we started doing those. And we've been doing them ever since.
Yeah.
Long may it last.
Do you do a lot of them from home, or do you have to go to studio to do them?
During the pandemic, I was doing a lot from home, but now it's preferable to go in the studio because then the chemistry with people is so great. So it's much nicer actually being in the studio with other people. So
Okay.
we tend to enjoy that. We use a brilliant studio called the Soundhouse Studio, which is right over the road from where the North Acton rehearsal rooms used to be all those years ago. So it's slightly like coming home.
Yeah.
Not that it looks the same anymore around there, but it's a lovely studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just mentioned about convention in Wales. So I've attended quite a few conventions over my life. What's your favourite part about going to conventions and meeting the fans?
Oh, it's definitely meeting the fans and listening to their amazing stories.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, and also realizing that the character of Ace has made such a difference to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people, because you automatically have a relationship with somebody, and I think that's so key, to be able to talk to actually a stranger, but they feel comfortable because they know the character of Ace.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come and tell us the most incredible stories about their lives and what they're dealing with and things like that. And it obviously makes a real difference. And I think at bottom, I think that as human beings, we all want to make a difference to people in our lives. And to know that I've done that through my work, which I love, is just a blessing.
Yeah, cool. So you wrote a book in 2020, At Childhood's End. Where did you get the ideas for this book and a little bit more information on it?
Yeah, it came from the trailer that Pete McTighe wrote for the box set, the Blu-ray box set for season 26, was it? I think that was the first one we did.
Okay.
And there was Ace, grown up in a suit, standing in a window, sort of reminiscing about her time with the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh yeah, that's exactly what Ace would be like. Slightly melancholic, always waiting, but still ready to beat up a Dalek with a baseball bat and chuck Nitro 9 around. And so when Penguin approached me about doing a book, well, it was actually Steve Cole, who I'd known for many years from BBC Books originally. Now he's a writer, a freelance writer. But he approached me. I said, yeah, I'd love to. So he and Mike Tucker, who used to be in visual effects, who also is a really great writer, we all got together and put our heads together and just had loads of ideas. And I said about how I'd like Ace to be now, and it was a real collaboration. It was great like that.
Yeah.
I said I'd love her also, from the mention that Russell T Davies made in the Sarah Jane Adventures. She'd be running a charitable Earth charity, and then when I was told of the scene that he'd thought in his head, the scenario, she'd be in a business suit, growing up in a sports car. I said, it's got to be an electric sports car, though, It just went from there, really, the ideas.
Amazing. How did it feel coming back to Doctor Who after so many years in Power of the Doctor?
Oh, it was like coming home. It was amazing. And what was great was that it was the same kind of atmosphere on set.
Okay.
The cast and crew just really melded, and the crew were enjoying themselves just as much as the cast. And Jodie was like Sylvester had been, she wanted everybody to be enjoying themselves, and her energy and her sort of sense of fun and her just her love of the job and of the people. It was so electric and palpable that you couldn't help but enjoy it. Yeah. And then, of course, working with Janet Fielding, who I'd known through conventions and things, but we really got to know each other. And in fact, she and Gemma Redgrave and I, we were this little threesome, and we sat around together, when they were setting up shots. We got to know each other so well.
Yeah.
And it was just a lovely, lovely thing. And then the day when everybody came down to do the companion scene, and that was amazing, because Bonnie was there, and Bonnie and I had been, we're sort of in touch with each other on and off anyway. And I rang her as soon as I knew I was allowed to. I rang her to say, I'm so pleased you're going to be in this scene. And she came down the night before, and we had a nice cup of herbal tea in the bar and a catch up. And then, Katie Manning, who obviously I've known for years and years. And it was just, so it was a wonderful sort of reunion. It was great.
Yeah, that's such an amazing episode. I think I watched it like 3 or 4 times that week when it was released. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? It was just what I think it was just what everybody was waiting for.
Yeah, we was waiting for it, but I just didn't expect it, and then obviously it happened,
Yeah,
and I was like, right, I've got to rewatch
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Could you
Chris
tell?
did a brilliant job.
Yeah, he did. He did. Could you tell me a little bit more about what you do with yourself now, and do you have any hobbies you enjoy doing?
Oh yeah, so I do a lot of voice work. I love doing voice work of all different kinds. So I'm just preparing an audio book at the moment. Very different. It's a sequel to a very harrowing book I did last year called The Midwife of Auschwitz.
Okay.
And this is Midwife of Berlin. So I've just today, in fact, I've got on my list of things to do, go through all the German pronunciations and make sure I'm getting that right. Luckily, I've got a German friend who's very helpful with that. Then I do, the big finishes when they come up, and Torchwood I've sort of sidelined into now as well, which is great. And then, yeah, just lots of conventions. My husband and I went off to Australia and New Zealand earlier in the year for a month and a half.
Lovely.
Doing that was lovely.
Yeah.
And then I'm just and hobbies. Love reading, love gardening, love just sort of hanging out with my family.
Yeah,
that's what I love doing.
Lovely. Just one final question then before we go. With the 60th Doctor anniversary coming up, which I'm very excited about, what do you look forward to the most about future Doctor Who?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing David Tennant and Catherine Tate returning. What I'm just fascinated to see what it's going to be like, because I think there's a lot. It's a lot grander. I think there's more money gone into it. I'm really looking forward to seeing Bonnie returning. I'm very jealous that she's got to ride a little orange Vespa, and that I never got to ride a motorbike, even though that's what they said they wanted.
Okay.
That's why I was cast. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing Nshute's Doctor as well. I think he's going to be brilliant.
Yeah.
And just how the whole thing fits together.
Yeah.
It looks like they've got different themes for each story, different eras.
Yeah.
That's going to be amazing to see that.
Yeah.
And then I think the casting choices are so exciting that Russell's making. I'm looking forward. My son, when Nshuti was announced, he came running downstairs and said, "Right, I'm going to watch Doctor Who now," because he's not really been that interested before. And then all his friends in their sort of late teens, early 20s, were contacting him, going, "What is this Doctor Who thing? Shall we watch it?" So I think it's going to bring a whole new fan base to Doctor Who, and that's very exciting as well. Yeah.
Russell showed quite a lot of content with trailers, etc., but there's so much that you can find out when the episode's air. It's going to be great.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you for coming on and speaking with me. It's been great and a privilege to speak with yourself. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Craig.
No problem.
No problem.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.
All the best.
Bye.